Hello everybody. This time I will talk about the 5 kings of Wa. This is a story from after the Yamato regime was established. During this period, East Asia was in a state of war. The effects of the war reached Japan as well. Let us first look at the situation in East Asia at that time. This was a time of great upheaval in East Asia, and nation-state formation was progressing in various regions. One of the most notable of these is Goguryeo, located in the northern part of the Chosen. Around this time, Goguryeo was expanding its influence southward. In addition, the tribal groups Mahan and Jinhan Confederacy became the nations of Baekje and Shilla. Although the Bainhan Confederacy tribal group did not establish a distinct nation, they became part of the region known as the Gaya. The Yamato government brought this area into its sphere of influence. Then they introduced iron from the southern part of the Chosen. It was under these circumstances that Goguryeo expanded south. Goguryeo began pressuring Baekje and Shilla in an attempt to expand its influence to the south. As a result, Baekje and Shilla were forced to expand their influence southward. As a result, the Gaya were the ones that suffered the most. The Yamato government was troubled by this. This is because the Yamato government obtained iron via the Gaya. Therefore, the Yamato government cannot afford to lose the Gaya. The Yamato government tried to overcome this situation by teaming up with Baekje. Thus, the Yamato government and Baekje formed an alliance and went on to fight against Shilla and Goguryeo. There are written records of the battle. It is the Gwangaedo Stele. If someone mentions the Gwangaedo Stele, you might not know what it is. Gwangaedo the Great was the king of Goguryeo. And by monument I mean a stone monument. The Gwangaedo Stele is a stone monument at the tomb of a Goguryeo king. This stone monument contains approximately 1,800 characters and contains various information. There are some parts that are well known in Japan. Baekje and Shilla were originally under the control of Goguryeo and paid tribute. However, after Wa crossed the sea and defeated Baekje and Shilla, Goguryeo made Wa its vassal. That is what the inscription says. So, what does that mean? Baekje and Shilla were originally allies of Goguryeo. However, the Wa invaded, and Goguryeo came to control Baekje and Shilla. That is what is written in this passage. There's more to this story. After that, Gwangaedo the Great became active. Then Gwangaedo the Great drove away the Wa and Baekje. That is what is written on this stone monument. Such written documents remain on the Chosen. There are also written documents about Japan from this period left by Chinese dynasties. At this time, China had ended the 3 kingdoms period of Wei, Wu, and Shu Han. The northern Wei dynasty emerged in the north, and the southern Song dynasty emerged in the south. This is known as the Nanbokucho period. Southern Song is particularly closely related to Japanese history. The reason is the Southern Song History Book, Book of Song. It contained written information about Japan at that time. The 5 kings of Wa appear in this Book of Song. The 5 kings of Wa are the 5 kings of Weikoku, San, Chin, Sei, Ko, and Biyu. They rekindled exchanges with China that had been cut off for a long time. History buffs say it like this. San is Emperor of Japan 20. Chin stands for Emperor of Japan 20. Such discussions are often held. However, if you are a high school student, you don't need to study that yet. Just remember that Biyu is Emperor Yuryaku and that will be enough for you. After becoming Emperor of Japan, Emperor Yuryaku claimed, Weikoku and the southern part of the Chosen are under my control. Emperor Yuryaku wrote a letter to the king of Song saying, please recognize my rule over the country that has been pacified for generations of my ancestors. This event is recorded in the Book of Song. In the end, the king of Song replied, Baekje has already paid tribute to Song. Therefore, you will not be allowed to rule Baekje. We will allow you to rule over areas other than Baekje. Now, this Bu of Wa, or Emperor Yuryaku, has another famous name. That is Wakatakeru no Okami. There is a famous story about this Wakatakeru no Okami. Let me introduce it here. A sword was discovered at Eta Funayama Kofun in Kumamoto Prefecture at the beginning of the Meiji era. The sword had writing on it. Ameno Shiro Shimisu Ha. Something? Ru no Okami no Miyo. That's how it was written. There were some parts where the text was unreadable. For a long time, it was unclear how to read this passage. and there was a lot of speculation. However, something happened that made me realize how to read it. What is that thing? Saitama Prefecture is a long way from Eta Funayama Kofun. There you will find an Ariyama Kofun, and there a sword similar to that was discovered. When it was first discovered, the sword was thought to be just a sword. While removing the rust, the woman working there discovered something shiny. This revealed that the sword had text carved into it in gold. The rust on the sword was thoroughly removed. There, characters were found that could be read as Wakatakeru no Okami. I think you understand what this means by now. This connected to previously unreadable parts of the sword found at Eta Funayama Kofun. Okami wa something Runo has been a mystery since the Meiji era. I figured out how to read it. This story in itself is interesting. What's even more surprising is the distance between the tumulus in which they are found. In modern place names, that is the distance between Kumamoto Prefecture and Saitama Prefecture. In other words, I think you can understand how wide the sphere of influence of the Yamato government ruled by Wakatakeru no Okami was. In this way, the Yamato government controlled a large area of Japan. How was it? In this way, we can learn about Japan at that time from written sources both overseas and within Japan. In this way, the Yamato government, which had subjugated the local ruling families, strengthened its power. The Okami of the Yamato government would later come to be called the Emperor of Japan. In the next video, I'll talk about the system of clans and hereditary titles. Well, see you in the next video.